Before we get started, as always, I'd like to ask the Lord to be with us. So if you don't mind bowing your heads, we're going to pray really quick. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today, Lord, and the people that are present. We ask you, Lord, to bless our day today. We thank you and praise you, Lord, for just being together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so let me tell you, let's see. So I told you a little bit about that. I've also been a guest chef on TV multiple times. In fact, I've recorded about 10 programs as a guest chef on a satellite network. And I actually, today you will be trying, because you know, Ron and I have this little competition. He tells people, oh, do you like a massage? Everybody likes a massage. Well, Thursday night, we're going to learn how to do massage. And we're not only going to just learn how to do massage, we are going to practically get massages too. So we're going to be basically a back massage, a 5-minute stress-relieving back massage. So Ron always says, oh, everybody likes me better because I do massage. But I have to tell you, I think people like to eat. And so I will dangle the carrot in front of you tonight and offer you samples of everything we make today. In fact, not only are you're getting a bonus today too. I just came back from Illinois recording some TV programs with Three Angels Broadcasting Network, and I did some new recipes. Now guess what? One of them today, two of them today, are new ones that I did on 3ABN that was just actually aired September 16th. I did not see it though because I was here. No, was I here? I was busy. Whatever it was, I didn't see it. So, I didn't have a TV. That's what it was. Anyway, so whatever the case is, I have not seen it. I went on YouTube. I have not seen it yet. So it debuted on Wednesday. But you will have that recipe too. I am sharing with you 2 recipes that will be in my new cookbook. Let me tell you a little bit about my cookbook. I think a lot of you already have this cookbook. However, I will tell for those who don't have it, I'll tell you a little bit about it. So I wrote a cookbook. It's called Plant-Based Made Simple. And what I did was I really wanted it to be a cookbook that anybody, whether you were a vegan, plant-based, pescatarian, meat eater, I wanted how people could transition to a healthier way of life through eating more vegetarian foods. Because we understand that, you know, and I'll give you some statistics on it, but a plant-based diet is by far the healthiest diet you can be on. So why is that? Well, I'll tell you that in a minute, but let me tell you about the cookbook because it's kind of nice. So anyway, I have some full color pictures for every recipe, and I have also, for people who are not really familiar with a lot of ingredients, because you see, when we cook more plant-based, we're looking to have those flavors and those tastes that we resonate with, that maybe we grew up with, but now we're taking away animal products. So how do we still get those flavors and stuff? Well, I have a whole chapter, it's like a 3-page chapter, it's not that long, but on different foods and techniques that I reference in the cookbook so that you can get to know some of those types of foods and those things. Very easy. Almost all of the things in this cookbook you can get in the ShopRite or the Stop and Shop. There may be 1 or 2 items that you might find at a health food store, but those are the minimal things. I don't think that when we're learning to have a healthier way of life that we need to make it complicated, right? So I called my cookbook Simple, Nutritious, and Delicious. Simple because, again, I don't think it needs to be complicated. We should use simple foods, simply prepared. Nutritious, well, because it has to be healthy. Because why would we try to transition to a different way of life if it wasn't a healthier way of life? And of course, delicious, because if the food doesn't taste good, none of you are going to make small changes. And you know, it's a journey. It's not like, okay, today I'm vegetarian. It's, you know what, sometimes we have to incorporate a meatless Monday in. Maybe we just kind of, change out, we find a recipe for a bean burger, and we say, you know what, I like that bean burger. I could have that instead of a hamburger every now and again. Things like that, right? So we want to make things simple, nutritious, and delicious. So if it doesn't taste good, you're not going to change. So anyway, let's go back to this really quick. The cookbook has QR codes. Are you familiar with QR codes? These little guys that you kind of use your phone, you put it on the picture mode, you just scan this, and now that we'll all be friends, right? Since after this class, you'll be like, I know Carin. And sometimes you might miss me. If you miss me, you can just QR code me and I come right in your kitchen and help you with the recipe, okay? I will demonstrate the recipe if you ever have any questions or you just miss me. That's what I think. I also have, there's a lot of times people have sensitivities. Gluten sensitivity, soy sensitivity, nut sensitivity, and some people are oil-free, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And so I took those 4 categories and I identified the recipes because maybe somebody in your family is gluten-free and they're coming for a holiday and you wanted to make something new. Well, you could look and find a gluten-free recipe. In fact, if you're gluten sensitive or gluten-free, there's about 75 recipes in here. And that was not on purpose. That was just how God directed the recipes. So interestingly enough, there's about 75. So pretty much that is it. I have some chef tips. So sometimes I have little changes to the recipe. You might want to look at those. And lastly, very important, the most important part to me, not really, but I almost missed the deadline for the cookbook and I almost did not have it ready for when I was going on TV. And the reason why was because I told them it was an unacceptable manuscript and they go, what? I said, well, because I wanted, I'm not picking on the guys here because I think there's just about as many guys as there are ladies here, but every title was all the same color. I'm like, no, we need to color code the titles to match the pictures, right? And see, because you see, I thought that was a personal touch, right? Yeah, but you know what they told me? Well, then you're going to have to do it yourself. So I had to sit there all day and color code. But anyway, it's my personal touch, right? So anyway, you'll see, you're not going to find a cookbook like that, are you? The details, right? It also has a soft touch cover and it also has a lay flat binding. So in the kitchen, it doesn't go flip, 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 flip. All you have to do is just, whenever you're at your recipe, you kind of just, and then you're done. And there you go. And that's the cookbook. If you like one, if you don't have one, if you want to get a second one, no, I'm kidding. If you want, we're actually on our second edition. Our first edition was 5,000 cookbooks, and usually they say cookbook authors sell about 750 a year. I sold 5,000 in 2 years. So with that being said, it's a very popular cookbook. And so we have another one in the works, which I should have the manuscript done by the end of this year. That's my goal. And 2 of the recipes that are on today's menu will be in there because I just did them for that TV program. So without further ado, let me tell you about one of them before we kind of talk a little bit about nutrition and get going with our cooking. So the French toast casserole. We've been talking about this because I have to tell you, I put the French toast casserole together and I said sometimes you have to work a recipe a few times to get it exactly how you want it. This was one and done. I said, boy, this is now my new favorite recipe. It's a French toast casserole. You have this recipe. It's not published. So you have it now. You guys have it all, right? Everybody has one. And it is a completely plant-based recipe, but I'm going to tell you, you'll never know there's no egg in it. I promise you. I promise you that you'll never know there's no egg in it. And it's really, I'm going to tell you, when you try it today, because we will have samples, you will be completely impressed. This is a great thing for a holiday or something. You do it ahead the night before. You just bake it in the morning. And I always love something easy like that. So you have that bonus. I'm sorry, it's not fancy print or anything. It's just, I printed it off my computer from what I sent over to the TV station. So that's the thing. And I will tell you the other recipe when we get to it that is going to be in the cookbook as well. All right, so in some of these, I have 2 of these recipes here tonight. 2 of them are already in this cookbook. So you have the recipe there, but there's 2 of them that are in there. So let's talk a little bit about nutrition really quick. Nutrition. Did you know that 94 to 96% of all disease, now disease can be categorized as inflammation in our body. A common cold is considered a disease because it is a health issue to the body. So everything from a common cold all the way up to something like stage 4 cancer is disease in the body. 94 to 96% of all disease is actually lifestyle related. That means that only 4 to 6% is actual genetics. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, a mutated gene, you could have a mutated gene in your body, which could make you susceptible to an illness. But that doesn't mean you're going to get the illness. You see, it's kind of like a genetic propensity, let's call it. Now, a true genetic problem. I'll give you a good example. I was born with a hip problem that I did not know about until as I aged and wore out the cartilage in this hip. Come to find out, one of my hips was a little smaller than the other. And so what happened was the cartilage kept wearing out. There was nothing I could do about that. This is the way I was born. That is a genetic problem. My lifestyle had nothing to do with the fact that this hip was smaller than the other, right? However, let's talk a little bit about something like diabetes. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, let's talk about. Type 2 diabetes is a completely lifestyle-related disease. Now, people say, oh, Carin, but wait a second. My grandmother had diabetes. My mom had diabetes. And now I have diabetes. Well, the difference between a lifestyle disease and a genetic problem is this. There might be a genetic propensity in your genetic network here of your DNA that says, listen, if you do A, B, and C, it's pretty likely you're going to have diabetes. Well, what happens? Well, mom's lifestyle, she learned from grandma. You learned your lifestyle from mom. So there you can see that if it triggered grandma, and then it triggered mom, well, the habits that they go down generationally. Let's think about genes for a second. If your genes are a gun, now let me ask you a question. Are guns dangerous?
No.
Who thinks they're dangerous? Who thinks they're not dangerous? All right, now, okay. I heard a lot of yeses, and I see that some of the name that people decided to change their mind. A gun is not dangerous. That's right. If I put the gun here, it's not hurting anybody, is it? So if your genes are a gun, it's your lifestyle that actually pulls the trigger. So your lifestyle is what's causing the genetic propensity to actually act on that mutation of that genetic thing. But if we change our lifestyle, we embrace healthier habits, we can avoid lifestyle disease. So like I said, 94 to 96% is lifestyle disease. Of the 94 to 96%, listen to this, 60 to 70% is directly related to what you eat. Directly related. That means, and I think like 94 to 96%, let's just pretend it's all of disease. That means that let's just say 65% of every illness that you have or that somebody has, whether it's chronic or acute, is related to their diet. Now, it could be just your susceptibility of it because you've eaten sugar. I told this story on Saturday night, how I ended up getting COVID. Somebody had COVID, but Ron and I, who were not eating any refined sugars, we were like on our best behavior because does sugar, we learned about how sugar affects the immune system and kind of drops your guard. All those little white blood cells are like deactivated, like 60% by just having like one soda. And so as you compound that sugar, drops. So there's a great vegan ice cream place across the bridge in Chattanooga, and I'm like, Ron, because we were walking, because we were really doing a lot of exercise during COVID. I'm like, we could go over there and have that little ice cream. He was like, he fell for it. He's like, okay. So he did it. The next day, I'm teaching a bread making class, and I'm showing people how to bread, and somebody had COVID in there, and boom, a few days later, I had COVID. And then we found out that person had COVID, and of course, put the dots together, and ta-da. I bet you if I may have been less susceptible of getting COVID if I didn't have that sugar the night before, right? Because it was kind of late, and I went right in the morning to teach this class, and I bet you my immune system was disabled. So I believe, so you can see how quickly even something like that, or a cold, your immune system gets, things. So our what we eat is so directly related to this. And so I think this is why I'm so passionate about teaching cooking classes, because I don't think that, listen, I think I'm a good cook. I'm not a bad cook. I mean, my recipes are pretty good. People like it. If you try the food today, you can tell me if you like it, and if you don't like it, well, you don't have to tell me. No, you could tell me if you don't like it either. But the fact of the matter is that I am more passionate about education. That's why I'm here telling you about nutrition, because we're going to make some great recipes today. And sure, you might like them and stuff, but I think it's important for you to know why we're making these good changes. So this is why I talk about nutrition so much. You know, we have something called the standard American diet. It's high in fat, high in sugar, high in salt, fried foods, heavy cholesterol, right? That's the standard American diet. The standard American diet has a very interesting acronym, doesn't it? S is in standard, A is in American, and D is in diet. What does that spell? Sad. Exactly. The standard American diet is sad because of those factors. But you want to know what I want you to embrace? A glad diet. A glad diet. God's living abundant diet. A diet that has more fruits and vegetables and natural things that we can put together and enjoy rather than those fried foods, those meats, those cheeses, those high cholesterol, high salt, high sugar things. And so that's why we're going to be doing that today. Let's see, I think I'm good here, good here. One other thing that I'd like to share with you really quick is the difference between a vegan diet and a whole food plant-based diet. Now, we were just talking about, Joanne and I were just talking about this. Does anybody know the difference between the two? A vegan diet versus whole food plant-based diet?
A vegan is no animal products at all.
Mm-hmm. And what is a whole food plant-based?
Anything you want except animals.
No animal products. Okay, so then pretty much that doesn't really help you. Okay, so let me tell you, vegan diet actually takes out animal products, but it takes out all animal products, meaning leather. It also will take out like things that are tested on animals, you know? So it's more like a culture and a lifestyle. And it actually goes way back to like Asian culture. Like, especially like the Hindus and things like that. You know, Hindus are primarily vegan. And why is that? Well, they believe in reincarnation. And so what happened is that one day somebody woke up and said, wait a second. If mom dies and she becomes a chicken and she ends up on my farm and we have chicken dinner, this is not a good thing. Karma. Right? We're having mom. Yeah, karma, right? We're having mom for dinner. And so they said, nope, no animal anything. But now that culture, I'll get to you, Lisa, in 1 second. That culture kind of went all the way to the United States, and it is the vegan diet is extremely animal activists, mostly. Now, there are people that are healthy vegans, and when I mean healthy vegans, I mean they really consider nutrition as an issue. But most vegans just consider no animal products, period. Here's a good example. Who here likes Oreo cookies? Be honest.
Likes what?
Oreo cookies. Oreos. You know, little chocolate, little cream, little chocolate. All right. Guess what? Oreos are vegan.
They're what?
They're vegan. But are they nutritious? Are they healthy? No. Though the difference between a vegan diet is taking animal products in, but a whole food plant-based diet takes the animal products out and replaces them with healthier options, such as, like if you're taking an animal, like say meat out of your diet, you need to incorporate a protein in there, not just an Oreo, you know what I mean? So you can see, and it is more nutrition conscious versus animal activism. Now, if you know me, and most of you know me here, I'm an animal activist. I love animals. Like, you know that my 3 little guys are in my motorhome right now, and they are anxiously awaiting me to finish this cooking class so I can go and give them their snack, okay? But they're over there. But honestly, the reason why I embrace a more vegetarian, plant-based diet is because it's nutritionally sound, okay? So, without further ado, we're going to do our first recipe. How's that? Our first recipe, and listen, I usually do them right in order, but I want to make sure we have enough of this recipe, so I'm doing this first. This is our dessert, okay? And the reason why I'm doing that is because I've already made one, and I said I don't think that's enough for samples, so we're making this one now to make sure it sets in the refrigerator. So we are doing if you look on your recipes, the Tropical Chia Delight. Tropical Chia Delight. So Tropical Chia Delight, we're going to start with chia seeds. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about chia seeds. Chia seeds are, does anybody know what they're considered, what category of foods they're considered? They are fatty acids, okay? It's, I think, the second to last page. I'm sorry. The last page, we stapled the French toast casserole in there. These are omega-3 fatty acids. Now, Fatty acids are essential to the body because the body doesn't make fatty acids. So we must get our fatty acids from food. Now the interesting thing is that there's two fatty acids that are pretty significant. There's the omega-3s and the omega-6s. Does anybody know the difference between the two? No. That's very good, but you don't know why. But you're right though. Joanne is correct. Omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. So and what did I say in the beginning? All disease is inflammation in your body. So we need to counteract the inflammation, because if you can get rid of the inflammation, you can get rid of the disease. So we need to counteract the inflammation. So incorporating omega-3s in our diet is very helpful. Now listen to this. Omega-6s are inflammatory. Oh, well, who wants that? Well, our body actually needs the omega-6s as well. But the interesting thing is, in God's infinite plan of our diet and nutrition, we had a balance way back in the Garden of Eden of one omega-3 to one omega-6. You got what you needed, plus they canceled each other out. So you had no problem. Nowadays, in the standard American diet, the average American gets 16 omega-6s to every one omega-3. That means 16 times the amount of inflammation is happening in your body rather than canceling it out, right? So it really is helpful when we include omega-3s in our diet. So what are some omega-3s? Walnuts are a great omega-3, flax seeds, soybeans, and then chia seeds. Chia seeds are one of my favorite, and I like that. So we're gonna do this tropical chia delight because it's one of Ron's favorite recipes too. So anyway, right, Ron? That's right, see? All right, so we're gonna start, we have our chia seeds, and you can buy chia seeds anywhere. Walmart has chia seeds, everybody has chia seeds. All right, and they're always, by the way, chia seeds are always organic. So just so you know, you don't have to, if it says organic, they're always organic, so don't worry about it. All right, so we're going to start with our thing. I'm going to try to do this in order for you. Our next is going to be coconut milk. This is just a can of coconut milk. You can get this everywhere. By the way, most of my shopping was done at ShopRite today because I miss ShopRite. I just want to let you know there's no ShopRite. There's no ShopRite in Tennessee. So I was very happy to go to ShopRite today and get my fill of crazy ShopRite. They have no, we don't have Piggly Wiggly. No, we don't have either of those. No, we don't. We have Publix, and we have Food City, and what's another one? Ron, what else do we have? Oh, Publix, Food City, Walmart. Those are Kroger. That's another one. All right, so I'm just taking, now I want to tell you the interesting thing about chia seeds is they absorb moisture. So they are going to puff out. In fact, that's what's going to thicken this pudding to be like a pudding rather than just coconut milk and these chia seeds. The next thing I'm going to do, by the way, this is one of the easiest recipes you can ever do. If you had fresh pineapple, you can just throw that in a food processor or a blender and blend it up. Use the pineapple and the juice together. But make my life simple. When the pineapple is not on sale, I buy crushed pineapple in 100% juice and throw it in. So here we go, one whole can. That works out perfect. So let's see, how many ounces is this? So it's 20 ounces. So that would be like 2.5 cups. It's 2.5 cups of crushed pineapple. All right, so mixing this up together. So this is a dessert. Now, if we actually stopped here and put this in the refrigerator, this is healthy enough for breakfast because chia seeds are also a protein source. So we're getting a great fat source with coconut milk. We are getting fruit, and we're getting the chia seeds, which are also a protein. Yes, Lisa, I'm sorry, I never called back on you.
No, that's okay. And fiber.
Oh, and high in fiber. They are extremely high. Hey, Ron, can you come up here and tell us a little bit about chia seeds? Let's quiz Ron on chia. I know Ron loves chia, so we're going to quiz Ron. By the way, before he does that, I'm going to tell you, since we're making this a dessert, I'm going to add a sweetener to this. You don't have to add, like I said, you could stop here and this would be a perfect breakfast, but let's sweeten it up. I'm using a little bit of raw blue agave. You could use honey, you could use maple syrup if you wanted to, but raw blue agave is one of my favorite sweeteners because it's a little lower glycemic than like maple syrup and honey. But the second thing that I like about it is it's very neutral flavored. It doesn't taste like, it's just sweet. It doesn't have a flavor. So anyway, Ron, come up and tell us a little bit about chia seeds.
What would you like to know about chia seeds?
Well, before he tells that, I'm going to refrigerate this, and then when Ron serves it, I toasted some coconut. We're going to just top it with coconut, and we actually have a little coconut whip. So we're going to put a little bit of that, and that'll be our dessert. So what do I want to know about chia seeds? You tell me what you want to tell us about chia.
So chia seeds first came to the United States in the 1970s. They came to a company called Jacob Enterprises. They did something that you might have known for years and years. The Chia Pet, right? Everybody remember the Chia Pet?
Cha-cha-cha-chia, cha-cha-cha-chia.
This was actually my first health nugget. You don't get a health nugget the other day here for many people. And so it was one of my first, so I did a picture of me.
It's just the regular can. It's like 12 and a half, right? Okay. Is it 15? 13 and a half, sorry.
Everybody thought that was funny. But anyway,
It's funny.
but you know, so chia seeds, number one, first off, the word chia means strength in the Mayan language. They actually used this. This was a food that they actually could live on for a long period of time because it was so nutrient dense. So 2 tablespoons is a serving. It only has like 140 calories in it. But the chia seeds have so many things. For example, it has 11 grams of fiber in just those 2 tablespoons, which is both soluble and insoluble fiber, so it aids with digestion and elimination.
Good thing I had some in there. Right?
And so it's very high in omega-3. In fact, I don't know of anything that's higher, not even flaxseed, than the chia seeds in omega-3.
Sure.
So you don't have to eat them brown like you do with
fatty acids put into the tissues. So you can't get into the tissues
Without the fatty acids. And vitamin D is so important because of the fact that the people that had severe COVID were low D because they couldn't get it in.
If you don't have fatty acids, the vitamin D.
That's what I'm saying, you can't get in.
It will pull it out of the tissues. So you need that.
Interesting.
Before didn't even realize that there was any nutrient value to that. So, like Carin mentioned, they do come from basically from South America. That's their homeland, and so anything else we want to know about cheese?
Did you have a good day?
Yep.
Good.
It's a microgreen. How do you grow it? If you grow chia seeds, how would you make a microgreen or how would you grow chia?
Well, you would grow just like you would any other microgreen. I don't grow microgreens, but I can tell you it involves taking the seeds, put them in these little caps, and putting a little water in there, and watch what you got.
Just sprout.
And just sprout it up. That's what you want. You want to sprout in that case. If you're going for the microgreen.
But where does the chia seeds come from? A chia plant? I mean,
Yeah, there's a plant that they grow. It's salvia something or another. I can't remember. Huh?
Salvia?
Yeah, but I can't tell you the last part of the
Sativa?
Maybe.
Salvia
I'm not
sativa? It might be. I think it's salvia sativa is what the actual thing is. So, anyway. Yes, thank you very much, Ron.
Thank you.
Bravo, Ron. So anyway, Robert reminded me of something very interesting too about chia seeds, or omega-3s actually. So in order for us to get the calcium from our stomach, it goes with vitamin D, it assimilates into our blood. But in order for us to be able to use and metabolize the calcium in our body, we can take it in, we can go out in the sun, all this is that omega-3s. So we need to have the omega-3s. I will bring another point in. You know, the statistics when they did after COVID, when they talked about people who had severe COVID or even died of COVID, they all had extremely low vitamin D levels. So this is important too. And listen, you don't have to make a pudding every day. You could just add that to your cereal. You could throw it in anything. I mean, I actually, and one of the things about, did Ron mention, I was back there, did he mention that it was high in iron? Yes. Okay. So I happen to run low in iron all the time. And so guess what? When my iron's a little low, I take just a couple tablespoons of chia and swallow it down with water. Yeah, that's what I do. I mean, it's so easy, boop, and then you're done. So anyway, so that's, how easy was that recipe? Done. Simple, remember, simple, nutritious, and delicious. All right, our next recipe is going to be one that I actually did a very similar recipe here at the church. You know what? I've done so many cooking classes at this church. It was very hard to find recipes because, you know, when I'm building a menu, I like to incorporate breakfast recipes and things of that nature, you know, lunch recipes, a dessert. I want to kind of give you a little taste of different things. But the interesting thing is I also have to do things that I'm able to create up here in a quick manner. So I had to like, and I'm like, oh well, we're doing this one, but it's a little variation, okay? So we are gonna, if you go down to the beginning of your thing, we're going to do the Tex-Mex tofu scramble. Tex-Mex tofu scramble. Now this is one of my faves too. I've done this one before on TV, but let me tell you, on the bottom of that first page, I have a taco seasoning here. Now I'm not gonna make the taco seasoning, but I did make it already here. But it is seasonings that you have in your house. There is something interesting though about this taco seasoning. It does not have any chilies in it, okay? Now why wouldn't I have any chilies in here? Does anybody know why?
Digestion.
Yes, because chilies are actually damaging to the mucosa of our stomach lining. In fact, so, you know, people that eat heavy chilies and heavy spicy food, such as like Mexico, they did a study actually in India and Mexico City, okay? And the rate of stomach cancer in those cities was like more like 40% higher than anywhere else in the world. And that is because of the chilies. And so spices in general, and we're talking about most heavy spices, okay? But chilies especially are very damaging to the mucosa of our gastrointestinal lining. So it's better to eat things that are not spicy. Listen, I have a baby tongue. My tongue is like a baby's tongue. It doesn't like anything spicy. So there's no problem in my house. But Ron likes a little zip. In fact, we went to India. I lost 10 pounds. Ron probably gained 10 because he loves spicy food, right? So he was in his heaven because I don't cook spicy at home. I would limit the spiciness I have. Like, you know, I mean, we're going to use a green pepper here. A green pepper's not spicy, but it's the capsicum in the hot chili peppers and cayenne pepper and all those things that can be damaging to the stomach. So we don't want to use those things too, you know, regularly. It's every once in a blue moon, you know. I might make some guacamole and throw half of a jalapeno in there for Ron, right? So anyway, so we're going to do this Tex-Mex tofu scramble. I'm going to start by sauteing some vegetables. I have some onion here and I have some peppers. So these are just some green peppers and some onion. And I'm going to saute them in water. What do you mean, Karen? What are you doing throwing water in there, right? Well, I'm going to let you know why. So in a whole food plant-based diet, if you are very strict whole food, now the nice thing about it, the definition of a whole food plant-based diet says mostly. So we mostly are looking for whole foods. Guess what? Oil is not a whole food. Why is that? It's processed. Oil comes from, just say olive oil comes from, and all of you know that I'm Italian, and so olive oil runs through the veins, right? I mean, there's not a meal at my house with my mother that didn't have olive oil in it, right? But what they do is they squeeze the oil from the olive. Now, the olive God is so great. He balanced the olive perfectly. It has the right amount of vitamins, the right amount of minerals, the right amount of fiber, and the right amount of fat. But when we take the oil away, all of a sudden fat calories, fat calories, I see Ron coming up, I don't know what I did, are very high. In fact, when you look at carbohydrates and proteins, there's 4 calories per gram. However, fat calories are 9 calories per gram, right? So when you pull that oil away from the olive, you're not getting the fiber to balance it. You're not getting those other things. So we want to use the oil sparingly. But one of the other things, do you need to talk to me first?
Yeah, because
Okay.
she said something here and it made me think.
I hope it was right. What did I say?
Well, you said the right thing, but
All right.
here's the catch. I just wanted to tell them, My daughter loves this, and she was talking about olives.
Yeah.
Did you know that there were 2 olives that were living in a tree? One fell out, right? And the olive that was up in the tree looked down at the olive on the ground and says, "Are you okay?" And he looks up and says, "Olive."
Ready? Da-dun-da. Ding! That's called the epitome of dad joke, right? Anyway, all right. Well, now my train of thought, I must find out where I was.
That's why I had to wait for you to
I wasn't done. All right. Okay, but I remember now where I was going with this. So why am I not using oils? Well, I want to use oil sparingly. And so Joanne happened to mention that she made tomato sauce today, right? She made tomato sauce today. And she's like, oh no, like what do I do? Like, do I use olive oil or not? I want to let you know that actually I do use a little olive oil. But one of the things that is salad dressings and cooking like that, but I'm going to tell you what I do. First of all, I always saute my vegetables in water. Now, I'm going to show you how my mother made our sauce, okay? Onion, garlic, glug, 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 glug. That would be olive oil. That's how much she used. That's an exact measurement, by the way. Glug, 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 glug. Okay? Then she would saute, fragrant, beautiful. She'd add the tomatoes. She'd add the seasoning. She would have that done. And voila, you had our tomato sauce. Now, I wanted to replicate. In fact, it is replicated here in my cookbook. However, what I did was I said, you know what? I'm not going to saute in olive oil. But how am I going to get that flavor, that mouth feel? How am I going to get that silkiness for the tomato sauce? So, you know what I did? I added it at the end. I just added a couple, tablespoons that I needed at the end, mixed it in, and I got all of those things. But the key to it is I didn't drown out the flavors of my onion and my garlic. I have the freshness of them without, killing them with the olive oil. Yes, Joanne? End of my cooking. End of my cooking. And the reason why is because olive oil, not olive oil, any oil has something called the smoke point. Have you heard of the smoke point? Well, the smoke point doesn't necessarily mean that it's smoking. The smoke point actually means it is the temperature of which that oil molecularly changes and becomes a carcinogen. Okay, so and olive oil has a very low smoke point. That means that at 320 or 310 degrees, olive oil is now becoming a carcinogen. If we have that mutated gene and the susceptibility to cancer, and that could be a trigger if we use lots of fried foods and lots of things like that. And so you can see why, okay, I'm going to use this. So we're just softening these now. By the way, my sauce will rival my mother's sauce. I'm going to tell you it does. And that's all, but I get the same benefit because you see the oil never gets to the smoke point if I add it in at the end. So anyway, you can do that with anything. I'll tell you the only thing I have a hard time with not using oil for a saute, and then I just use minimal and I do it, is when I do like hash brown potatoes. I do an oven potato in here, but sometimes I like to just throw them in the pan, make them quick. We don't always have all the time in the world, right? And so I, even with a nonstick pan, I have a hard time. So I use a little bit of olive oil there. You know what? I would say if you're minimizing the oil in the saute and the fry, you are giving yourself another health benefit, even if you don't eliminate it completely. Like I said, that's probably the only thing that for me, that I can't do with water. Now, the one thing though you'll notice though is that water is going to actually evaporate. Oil will not evaporate, so you'll have the oil in there. So what I do is I just keep an eye on my vegetables. I'm just softening them, and you'll see that the water will kind of evaporate. And then what I do is if I need to do it a little more, just add a little more water, it'll evaporate, and then you've got the freshness of those vegetables. So we're going to let these cook just a little bit. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to put together my tofu mix. Now, let me just see how sometimes I do, I have to read the directions because when I'm at home, I just throw things together and let me make sure I'm doing this in the right order for you. Okay, so I have actually taken tofu. Now, is there anybody here who's never had tofu before? Everybody, you've had tofu before. I know you've had tofu before. Does anybody have never had tofu? No, everybody's tried tofu before? Have you tried, Tommy? Tofu. Have you? You've had it. Have you, Eric? Yes. Okay. So I think everybody here has tried it. Now you may or may not like it, but I hope that you will you'll be able to experience something that you'll be like, wow, that's pretty good.
It's
yeah.
pretty blunt.
Right. It's pretty well. Well, how you had it was pretty bland, right? Oh, don't judge me yet, Tom. Don't judge me. Now, actually, tofu is actually soy cheese. It is made the same way cheese is, but it's using soy milk instead of a dairy milk. Now, the thing about it is that when they make a block of tofu, though, they don't salt it. So it actually has no flavor. Now, it has flavor, but it's not a lot of flavor. It takes on the flavor of which you season it with. And so we are going to season this tofu. All right, let me see what I had. Mash the tofu with a fork or potato masher. A potato masher is not just for potatoes, I want to tell you. They are good for tofu as well. So you see, I made this kind of like a mash, it looks almost like a scrambled egg mash. Now, it's not the right color yet, but we'll get there. Okay, I'm sauteing my onions and peppers, and then I'm going to add the ingredients. I'm just going to mix them into the tofu, and then we're going to dump that right in. Now, I have tomatoes here that we chopped up. By the way, this is called Tex-Mex Tofu Scramble. Please tell me why you think that I called it Tex-Mex Tofu Scramble. Well, first of all, I have a taco seasoning that we're just going to garnish it with. So you're just going to get a little bit of that flavor. So I don't have to mix this in. But any other reasons why I would call it Tex-Mex? All right, I'll tell you. You guys were too slow. Because I used onions, peppers, and tomatoes. Why would that be significant? Oh yeah, you could put those all in salsa. No, they're the colors of the Mexican flag. So why not call it Tex-Mex? Robert didn't like that. Well, Robert, I'm sorry. But anyway, I didn't put my tomatoes in only because I know they get a little mushy sometimes. And so I wait a little bit before I actually put the tomato in. So we'll put them in now as they're going. Oh, hello, tomato. Clean up aisle 1 here. Okay, so let's get this mixed in, and we're just gonna, like I said, these vegetables are just softening. I don't even have to cook them too much, just soften them. So anyway, but let's get my tofu ready. Now, tofu is going to take on the flavors that you put in. So let's see, what are we going to put in with our tofu? We're going to start with something called chicken style seasoning. Chicken style seasoning is actually a bunch of herbs put together that kind of give almost the illusion of a chicken broth. And so if you mix this with hot water, it would be like having a soup base, like a brothy base for like a noodle soup or something. And there's no chicken fat in it, there's no animal product in it at all. So you can get this at pretty much any health food store would definitely have it. Or I have a recipe in my book, okay? Thank you, Robert. Good memory, Robert. All right, Robert gets an A even if he gave me a thumbs down on my joke, or my Mexican flag joke. All right, so I'm just going to mix this in. This, it really is, like I said, if you go in the cookbook, you'll see what is in there. And you can actually, the nice thing about it is you can actually adjust the salt in case you are maybe hypertensive. By the way, I forgot to tell you with chia seeds. Do you know chia seeds lower blood sugar and lower blood pressure? Very good to have for people who may have some of those illnesses. All right, so I'm mixing this in. Why use the chicken style seasoning? Where does the egg come from? Chicken. Right? All right, chicken. So we're going to have this, and it's not going to taste chickeny, but it's going to give it a flavor. And so why not use the chicken style? All right, our next thing we're going to put in is some turmeric. Guess what turmeric is? It's an anti-inflammatory. Ooh, that means, remember, if we reduce the inflammation, we get rid of the disease, right? We're going to add in turmeric. Now, turmeric is also going to be another benefit. The culinary benefit is it is going to actually give us the color of scrambled eggs. Now, right now, if you can see here, it doesn't really look like scrambled eggs. It's kind of pale. Do not let the amount of turmeric fool you. Because you see, when you heat turmeric, it starts building the color, okay? And I've made the mistake, like, I didn't put enough in, and I throw an extra, and then I have like neon yellow eggs. And it's not appealing. Do not try to serve neon yellow eggs. People will not want them, or tofu, right? Our eggs are scrambled, okay? So if it's pale, do not worry, it'll be fine, I promise you. All right, so what is our next thing? We're gonna put in onion powder. Onion powder, good for anything, we'll add that in. We also have some garlic powder. I have a little garlic powder. And then something called nutritional yeast flakes. Has anybody not heard of what nutritional yeast flakes are? Tom, do you know what these are? Tom knows what they are. How about Eric? Eric, have you had nutritional yeast?
Nutritional
Yeast flakes. All right, well, let me tell those who don't know what nutritional yeast flakes are. Nutritional yeast flakes are actually a yeast that's grown on molasses. And what they do is they deactivate the yeast by heat. And then what they do is they kind of grind it up and they add some B vitamins to it. So B vitamins are very important. I don't have time to really talk about B12 and all of that, but B vitamins are important and we do not get enough of B12 in our diet, especially the older we get. And the reason why is because our body, in order to assimilate B12, you need something in your gastrointestinal system called the intrinsic factor. The problem is that as we age, our body produces less and less of the intrinsic factor. So the older we get, we already are deficient in B12 because of the way we farm and how the microbes in the soil are kind of void of B12. So our foods are not getting B12. We're not getting B12. And then in fact, and what we do get, we don't assimilate right. So we can't process it well. So the older we get, we should always get our B12 checked to make sure we're getting enough. There's supplementation you can do, very easy, sublingual under the tongue. And it usually is helpful enough. And Ron and I are not B12 deficient, so that's the good news. All right, so we have this nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is a seasoning that not only has the B12 vitamins in it, but it is a creamy, nutty, cheesy kind of flavor. So it just adds to the flavor. Yes?
Good in popcorn, too.
It's excellent in popcorn. Excellent in popcorn. I use a little dill. I use a little of the chicken style seasoning, and I use a little bit of the nutritional yeast. Okay, so we'll get that mixed in. Now we're putting in the secret ingredient. Let me turn this off for a second, because I don't want them to get too much. Is something called kalanomic. Have you ever heard of kalanomic? No. Kalanomic is Indian black salt. Now, why would I be using an Indian black salt? Because it is a very sulfury salt, which actually will make this dish have an egg flavor, okay? In fact, I used it in our French toast casserole. That is why you are not gonna realize there's no egg in there, because the custard has this in it. I'm gonna add a little bit of this in here, and we're gonna mix it in. I wonder if I put it in enough. Wait, what did I say? Okay. You don't have to put, can you smell it already? You can smell the egg? The egg flavor right away, right? All right, we're gonna now turn this on again and we're gonna just saute this in, and that is our scramble. And you can make this ahead of time and just heat it up. Let's get this out. You don't have to do it at breakfast. And the nice thing about it too is that it reheats really well. It'll have nice flavor. And you can do this, you can use any vegetables you want, actually. Like I said, I did it for our flag, to honor the Mexican heritage that I do not have, but I don't need the water. But you need to just heat this up, and so that's how those flavors are gonna meld together. So we're just going to, I'm gonna actually let this heat while I'll pull up our next recipe, because I want to make sure that we are out on time, and I'm already running late because I talk more than I cook. And I don't want anybody to have to be here too late. Okay, I know that I promised every night that we were going to get out by 9, and we're out by 2 minutes after 9 every night. So, but I never get started. See, I should get a little leeway, because we don't ever get started on time. Hint, hint, if you want to be here at 7 o'clock tomorrow, we'll start on time. So anyway, all right, so here we go. We're going to just keep on heating this up, and you'll see that the color is going to be kind of more vibrant. Hopefully not neon. All right, so the next recipe that we're going to do is our tofu yogurt. I should have realized I was using tofu, but I'm using two different types of tofu. The tofu that I'm using here is the bean curd that you would get in the produce section of ShopRite or Stop and Shop or wherever you shop. Okay, so this is what they would use if they sauteed, like Ron had tofu and broccoli from the Chinese restaurant today for lunch. Okay, this is the tofu that they use. They just cut it and saute it, and there you go. However, the tofu that I'm using on this recipe is a silken tofu. Now this one would probably be one of those ingredients like the black salt, by the way, if you're interested in where you would get it at either an Indian grocery store, which Tom's River has one. I went to one here a few years back, so I'm pretty sure that they still have it. But if not, you can order it on Amazon or in usually like the Indian grocery stores. So if you have one around here, if not, Amazon, okay? So now let's go back to the tofu. This would be another thing that a specialty item. But this is shelf stable. So I go to the health food store and I'll buy a bunch of these and just put them in my cabinet ready to go, because this is Ron's favorite yogurt. So I'm going to start with our silken tofu. And interesting, believe it or not, long time ago, my father was big on PBS. Like that was like the only thing we were allowed to watch at home was public television, right? And so I watched a special one time on how they make this, right? And the nice thing about this tofu is that it is much silkier. This is more like a firmer type of tofu, where it'll hold up to things. This is good for desserts, smoothies, the yogurt, puddings, things like that. This is very silky, and it's because they just process it a little differently. But I do want to tell you that it's very interesting. Do you know this is actually completely sterile and hermetically sealed when it is made? Because you see on the inside, they actually cook it in the package. Isn't that interesting? A little tidbit. Who knew, right? That is why you want me on your Trivial Pursuit team, right? Because I have those facts. I'm a wealth of useless knowledge. All right, but I thought it was interesting when I saw it on PBS. All right, so here we go. We've got some I thought strawberry was the fruit of choice today. I don't know, I looked, and I actually bought frozen strawberries. Why? Well, it says here you've used fresh berries. You could use fresh or frozen. I should change that to make sure it says frozen as well. But see, frozen berries and frozen vegetables are next to only fresh. But is it strawberry season here in New Jersey? It's not strawberry season right now. No, it's in June, right? In June, I would have used, that's right, in May, June, the beginning, end of June, I would have used fresh strawberries. However, these were probably picked during strawberry season, and they were flash frozen at the peak of freshness. So, and they did not lose much of their nutritional value being frozen like that, flash frozen. So we're going to use these today. And so you can get the freshest flavor without, compromising the fact that you don't have fresh strawberries. Because you know what? Strawberries right now taste like nothing, There's no flavor whatsoever. All right, so there we go. So we're going to add some strawberries, but use whatever. Listen, you can use whatever, any fruits. I use mango. I almost bought mango, and then I knew Joanne doesn't love mangoes. I was going to get peaches, and I'm like, I'm so peached out because every time we see white peaches, we buy like 8 of them, and then I'm eating peaches until, So anyway, so I said no peach. And so I was like, blueberry, I do blueberry a lot, and then I thought strawberry. But interestingly, I was in Jamaica in October doing a Ron and I were speakers at a health retreat, and I was doing a cooking school there, and I wanted mango, and it wasn't in season. So I'm like, bring me whatever. They brought me star fruit. Star fruit? I don't even know how to eat star fruit now. You know what? It came out delicious. It was so good. Who knew? It's like some star-looking fruit. You slice it, and it looks like a star. Hello? Use whatever you like. That's what the point was, is you can use whatever you like. All right, so now I'm going to use just a pinch of salt. I'm going to talk about salt in a little while, and so I'll talk to you a little bit about salt. I'm going to use a little lemon juice because yogurt has a little tartness, doesn't it, that you're used to? So we're going to throw a little lemon juice in there. I'm also going to use a little sweetener, again, just for being a good steward of God's money. I'm using agave. You could use honey if you want, if you have it, whatever you have at home. I'm using agave because I bought it for the other recipe, so why not use it for this recipe too? So we'll use the honey, the agave. And let's see, then I'm gonna I put the tofu in there. I'm putting a little vanilla. And lastly, I have cashews that I didn't put in yet. Hold on, let me stir. Let's stir this guy. He's getting there. Isn't it now looking more like scrambled eggs? Yes. Right? See how pale it was before? I told you. It's a miracle. All right. So sometimes you can cook this as long as you want. You know, if you like your scrambled eggs a little softer, you don't have to cook it as long, just heat it up. Or if you like them a little drier, then just cook them a little longer. It'll take that moisture out of the tofu. You could also drain your tofu. I don't really drain it too much, so it kind of just, you know, the moisture dissipates out of the tofu as you cook it. So anyway, let me just, all right, mix that up. Back over to my thing here. All right, so now I'm using some cashews, but you see my cashews are soaked in water. Does anybody know why I'm soaking my cashews? No, because these are raw cashews. So that was a good try though. Next, anybody? Ah, that's the first reason. There's 3 reasons why. The first reason is for the culinary purpose. It makes them softer. So when I put them in my blender, I'm not like taxing my blender so much. So they'll blend in nice and creamy, because nobody likes gritty yogurt, right? All right, so no gritty yogurt for us. So we'll put that in there. By the way, I soak them for at least 2 hours is good, but overnight is even better. But I'll tell you why in a minute. So the second thing, do you ever soak beans before you cook them? Why do you soak the beans? Not just to soften them. What's the second reason? Because what do they do? I'll tell you. I like to say it in the most, and Joe Donald's not here and he's from the UK, but he would have appreciated this. Because it could cause you to be, a little windy. Not a nice way to say it? A little windy. All right, so we don't want to be windy, right? Because the reason why that beans need to be soaked as well as nuts and things is because they can cause indigestion and a little gassiness and maybe a little cramping because, and these are raw nuts, not, roasted nuts, okay? Because there's something on them called phytic acid. Now, phytic acid, right, is a protective enzyme on nuts, seeds, beans, and grains, actually. And so we want to get the phytic acid off, but let me tell you, there's another reason why. So that's I guess we'll say that's the reason why we don't want to be embarrassed, right? And we don't want to feel uncomfortable. But the last reason is because phytic acid actually blocks the absorption of minerals in your small intestines. Therefore, if we're trying to eat healthier, we want to try to get the best nutrition, right? So it's really, you want to know what I do? I buy my nuts in bulk because I use a lot of them. First of all, if you buy your nuts and you don't use them fast, you should store them in the refrigerator or the freezer, because nuts definitely have a lot of oil in them, and the rancidity rate could happen. Do you ever have a bad nut? Oh, yeah. It is not good, right? So don't let your nuts go rancid. You don't want that. That's actually damaging when it goes bad like that. So just leave them in the refrigerator or the freezer. I freeze all my nuts and just use them. But what I do is I buy them, I soak them overnight, I drain them, I rinse them really good, right? I drain them, and then I lay them out on baking sheets and air dry them. And then I throw them in bags, put them in the freezer, and then when I need them, I just throw them in boiling water to soften them because the phytic acid's already gone. All right, not a great idea? Ta-da! Well, Carin, you're so smart. I know, thank you. All right, so, all right, let's get this. This is almost done. Like I said, I just kind of wanted to dry it out just a little bit to make it there. All right, so I added my nuts here. The nuts, actually nuts in plant-based cooking, raw nuts, especially cashews, are excellent for creaminess. And so this is going to kind of actually not only make this really nice and creamy, but it's also going to actually be a thickener because cashews are naturally starchy. So we're going to start now. You always want to start. By the way, does anybody here have I know a couple people that have Vitamixes. I know at least 2 of you. Anybody here have a Vitamix? Gary has one. Oh, Michael. Vitamix? Oh, okay. I'm going to tell you, having a high-speed blender in plant-based cooking will be your best friend in the kitchen.
Hold on a minute.
It will be your second best friend in the kitchen. All right. By the way, yes, Robert?
So how do I get Ron in the kitchen, my kitchen?
Yeah. Let me tell you something. You want Ron in your kitchen because we have a rule. 1 cooks, 1 cleans. So there you go. Ron is excellent. He's I call him my sous chef and chief bottle washer. He's excellent at that. No, really, I could not do this without him. So, I mean, listen, I have done it without him, but I had a whole team of 100, right? Yeah. All of you that were here, right? Cheryl, Bobby, Robert, right? They were all here helping me, right? But now one person has replaced all of you. So just so you know. All right, so we're gonna start on low, and you wanna work your way up. You wanna get to, so it's on high so we can blend these nuts. But you don't wanna start on high because you will be the recipient of showers of blessings if this thing pops off. So, when you get it going, I just put it on high. Can you hear me okay over the blender? If you have nuts in your blender, a high-speed blender, you need to blend for about 30 to 45 seconds so you don't have grittiness, okay? So this is going pretty good. We're just going to make sure it blends. Everybody? All right, and that is all you need to do. Now this is, the great part of this is that this yogurt will last in the refrigerator. I'm obligated to tell you like 3 to 5 days, but it'll last longer. You didn't hear it from me though, and I'm not, and especially if I'm not on YouTube, right? No, it actually, in an airtight container, it will last longer. The problem with foods in your refrigerator is that there's a lot of bacteria in your refrigerator, and that's what causes your foods to go bad. So we're going to get this here, scrape this out, but I want to actually add something before. Now yogurt, why do we use yogurt? Well, there's something in it that oh no, you know what, this is like, I shouldn't have put this out. It got the moisture. All right, hopefully it's got probiotics. All right, I got to break this up with my fingers. I hope you don't mind here. All right, so we're breaking this up because what I did was I did this and then lifted out, and obviously must be moist today. Has it rained? No. All right. Anyway, so I'm going to just add this in. What I'm doing is I'm using a probiotic. This is a probiotic that I bought in the health food store. Probiotics, very important for gut health. What we want to do is feed the good bacteria in your gut to get rid of your bad bacteria. Okay. Now I hope this isn't too clumpy when I go in there. Okay. Well, it should be okay, but we don't know. Here, let's get this side. All right, I'm mixing this up. Hopefully it'll dissolve in here. But what I did was I bought a probiotic, and I'm adding this because I don't want it to just taste good. I would like it to be why you would take yogurt. Yogurt is not only delicious, but it actually has the culture in the yogurt is actually very functional for our gut health. And so I'll mix this in. Now, why didn't I put it in the blender? How about that?
I don't know.
You don't know? I will tell you. Because actually, probiotics, if you heat them, they deactivate them. And so by the way, here's where I can relate to the men in our class today. This blender has a 2.2 horsepower motor. It is like having a lawnmower in your kitchen. So you can imagine, you can actually boil soup within 6 minutes. Boil soup in 6 minutes in a Vitamix. So, and I've done it too, because I said, oh, come on, that's ridiculous. No, it works. So I think it's like 6.5 minutes and it starts boiling. But anyway, so I did not want to have this in there to be deactivated. So we are going to give this to Ron. Now, remember, cashews are naturally starchy. So what they will do, let me turn this off. What they will do is they will actually thicken this up. I've made a batch already. This may not be thick enough, but here, I want to give you this too, Ron.
Go ahead.
Okay, you can come back for this then. Yep. Anyway, all right, can you all see my beautiful, and we'll just top this with a little taco seasoning on top to give it a little Southwest flair, Olay, right? Okay, and that is our thing. All right, we're moving on. How am I doing on my time here? Whoop. Yeah, we want to make sure everybody has time to eat. So I know Joanne has to leave at 9, right? I want to make sure. All right, no, I want to make sure that you get your samples as well. But don't worry, if you have to leave, Joanne, we will make sure you get your samples. All right, we are going to do our next recipe, which is a coconut corn chowder. Now, the coconut corn chowder is actually like a fan favorite. And so what I'm going to do is I've cubed, all right, I have not cubed. Ron has cubed potatoes, and I actually have them in some water just to keep them from browning. But you can see what I like about this recipe. I use yellow potatoes. You could use red as well. And I do not take the skins off. And the reason why is because the skins are high in what? It's an F word, but it's a good F word. Fiber! They're high in fiber. And a lot of nutrition too, a lot of vitamins. They're not just the starchy part, right? So I'm going to start by putting in some water, and if you're following the recipe, the measurements are on there. I'm going to put all my seasoning in except the dill. Okay? By the way, the dill, so I'm putting in my onions too, by the way. Going to get them soft. And I'm going to put in my salt, is that onion powder? My little bit of salt here, and my chicken style seasoning. This is going to be our soup base. Now this is a creamy soup because chowders can be like either creamy or tomato based. We're going to do a creamy chowder here, but you'll see how I can do the creamy without using cream, okay? So we are going to get this started, and what we need to do is soften the potatoes. So I should have started them ahead of time. Oh well, we're going to get there going. So I'm going to show you, I have a little coconut milk here, and I have our corn, and I'm going to leave those there. I'm going to let Ron take that, and I'm actually going to do the next recipe for time's sake, and we'll finish with this recipe, but at least I got that started. So Ron, whenever you're ready, you can take that. Oh, let me tell you a little story. So if you've ever been to Tennessee, anybody been to Tennessee? I know Jane has been. Oh, okay. So if you've been to Tennessee, they have the Tennessee Aquarium, happens to be in Chattanooga, which is like 15 minutes from my house. In fact, the first year we moved there, I bought a family pass, which was like three adults and four children. That was great, because we could bring people all the time. And they had like an IMAX theater that did all nature movies, and then the aquarium was great. So if you ever get down there, go to the aquarium. So we go to the aquarium, and they have lemurs. I don't know why, they're not aquatic animals, right? But whatever, they were up on the first floor, the top floor of the first building is the lemurs. You work for your way down, you go to the third floor, and you go down. So we go there, and they were doing a question and answer about the lemurs. So you had the zookeeper there, or the lemur keeper, and so she was saying about the lemurs, and some little girl raises her hand. She was like 6 years old maybe, and she goes, "What do lemurs eat?" And listen to this. So the lemur keeper says, "Oh, lemurs are vegetarians." She goes, "They eat plants, they eat fruit, they eat vegetables, you know." And she goes, "Why are they vegetarians?" And this is what she says: because if they ate meat and things of that nature, they would get cancer and diabetes and heart disease. That's what she said. I was like, oh, I want to talk to her, right? I want to see if she was a vegetarian, right? I didn't get a chance to talk to her, so I never found out, because like all the little kids, it was like me, Ron, and like school kids, so we couldn't get close to her. You know, I didn't want to push the kids out of the way, you know, and then we just moved on. So anyway, but isn't that interesting though? So I mean, just something to think about, that even people, you know, who are science-oriented and zoologists have a thing. So that was my thing. All right, let's talk a little bit about salt let's do our next recipe, and then I'll talk about salt. How's that? All right, here's another recipe that's going in the new cookbook. Okay, so you're going to taste the French toast casserole, which I did, and the reason why I did not demonstrate French toast casserole is because it really has to sit and in the refrigerator to get that custard nice and soaked into the bread. Now, by the way, I was like, we thought about this last night. Ron was like, you should make the French toast casserole. You were talking about it. And I'm like, okay, because it's really delicious, right? So I said, okay, I will. But then I was like, oh, how do I get day-old bread? Because usually what I do is I leave like the bread out. I cut it up and let it, because it really will absorb better and it'll have a better texture. Oh, I just took a baguette of whole grain, multi-grain, ShopRite baguette, chopped it up in cubes. I threw it in the oven and dried it out. That's all. So you don't need to have day-old bread. You could just dry out your bread. But anyway, all right, back to our next recipe. This recipe is the tuna salad cucumber stacks. Okay, I did this one because my program was brunch made simple. So I did the French toast casserole. I did mini quiches, eggless crustless quiches actually. I did a couple of like fancy schmancy little things. I did like a raspberry lemonade. It was very nice. And so I did all these little things, right? And so by the way, all that stuff will be in my next cookbook. The quiches are actually in this cookbook. But I said, I want to do something that would be like where you could put out as a finger food, right? And I thought, let's do this. So I made a tuna type recipe out of chichi beans, chickpeas, garbanzos, whatever you want to call them. I call them chichis, but okay. So this is a faux tuna stack, all right? So we are going to make this faux tuna stack. So first of all, I took a can of chickpeas. You can make your chickpeas if you want, but sometimes mine are hard, like when I do them, like they don't get soft enough. So anyway, so I bought chickpeas, I rinsed them well, and I put them in my food processor, and I just chopped them up into like a, whatever texture you'd like. I kind of made it hopefully like tuna, okay? So it's kind of like a flaky texture, if you see it here, right? So we've got there. All right, so my next ingredient, so that's my, where's my tuna? Oh, here it is. Oh, here we go. I'm gonna put you over there, come over here. Okay, so then what I did is, by the way, I used English cucumber, and I actually have those here. I used the English cucumbers, those long ones that are always in plastic? Right, okay. I use them because there's a little bit of seeds, so they wouldn't be too wet and mushy. So when you made these so if you're going to do them, I also bought crackers, so we have enough where we can slap some on a cracker too. So we have the cucumber stack, plus this would be nice if you wanted to just have it on a sandwich or a cracker. But for Fancy Schmance brunch that I was doing on my TV show, we had it on cucumbers, but I wanted to make them just like that. All right, so I actually have some plant-based mayonnaise. Now guess what? In my cookbook, I have 3 plant-based mayonnaises in them. Now, I actually bought a vegan mayonnaise, a plant-based mayonnaise from ShopRite, just because of lack of time. But if anybody here has ever had Vegenaise, and if you like Vegenaise, my recipe for Aquafabulous mayonnaise, which is made with aquafaba. Does anybody know what aquafaba is?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's the moisture, it's what the chickpeas are.
Exactly. If you were draining chickpeas, if I use canned chickpeas, I drain the aquafaba or the juice out of it, and I save it and I put it in the freezer. You can freeze it, by the way, because then you have it. It's an egg replacer. I use that instead of egg in my mayo, and instead of using vinegar, which is also something that is a gastrointestinal issue for people with gastrointestinal, vinegar is actually an irritant to the stomach. Because of that, I use lemon juice, and I'm going to tell you, try that if you like Vegenaise, if you use that one, and I'm going to tell you you're going to like this even better, okay? So, not that I'm so great, but I think the lemon juice really makes a difference, and it's really nice. So anyway, I digress, but I'm back. Okay, so we have just some plant-based mayonnaise. This is like a 1/4 cup, not much. So, put it in. By the way, that one has a lot of oil in it, that mayonnaise, the Aquafabulous mayonnaise. But I do have a soy mayonnaise in there, and I also have a cashew mayonnaise. So if you don't want to use a lot of oil, I have those in there as well. All right, so we have our mayo in there. What else am I going to put in there? Well, I'm going to use a little lemon juice. Just a bit of lemon. All right, and we have celery stalk. So I chopped the celery stalk, because sometimes tuna salad has celery in it, right? If you don't like celery, guess what? Don't use it. I don't. I have a little red onion because I like onion in my tuna salad. So I put a little red onion there for some color, a pinch of salt here, boop. And I have something that is going to make this taste like tuna. What is it? Kelp powder, yes. I'm using kelp powder. Now, kelp powder is now another ingredient that you might want to go to the health food store over there in Tom's River. Kelp is actually it is a seaweed that what they do is they just dry it and then they grind it. That's it. And you get a lot of something in it. There's iodine. That's right. In fact, a lot of people take this as a supplement. You can get kelp powder in a supplement, a vitamin store, because people take it for thyroid health. Very important. We need to make sure we get enough iodine. Do you know most people are deficient in iodine? Most people are. Now, it may not be affecting you tremendously in your health, but we really need to have enough iodine to have a healthy, all those processes in our body. So anyway, look at this. Is this looking like tuna? Kind of like a tuna salad, right? It's not exactly the same color, but it's got the same texture to some degree. And I like to add a little dill. Why? I don't know. I like it. So that's why. So that's all. But you don't have to add the dill, but I like the dill. I think it makes a little dilly thing. It kind of makes it like a pickle. You know what I mean? You know, like a dill pickle on a sandwich. I guess that's why I put it in there. I don't know. Maybe. But anyway, that's how easy this is. It's done. Refrigerate, and you've got it. Chickpeas are a great source of protein, an excellent source of protein. I can't really talk to you a lot about things like proteins and stuff. We just don't have the time. But all I did was to make these little guys. I just put them on the cucumber. I put that one on top. And then I used a little ta-da and put them together. Isn't that cute? That's all I did. Let me put him in there. All right. So anyway, I'm rolling right along here. Hopefully, I'm going to be talking about salt in a minute, and I'm going to let Ron take this so he can, now we've already made some of these, but he has this that he can make for crackers. So I'll put some on a cracker for you as well. So you can see you can envision how it would be on a sandwich, right? All right. So, Ron, here you go. You have that when you're ready. And let's see how our potatoes, now really all we're doing is trying to soften, why is this taking so long? We're just trying to soften the potatoes. They are not ready yet. Good news, I already made a batch. But I will let this keep cooking because then we'll have more for that. But let me talk to you a little bit about salt, and I think this is probably the last thing I'll probably talk about so we can get started with eating, because I don't want to make people stay here too long. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about salt. If you noticed, and I don't know if you could see or not, but does anybody know what kind of salt I was using in my recipes? Himalayan pink salt, pink Himalayan salt, okay? Why am I using that? Well, let me tell you a little bit about Himalayan pink salt. Himalayan pink salt is actually 99.9% pure. And the reason why is it's mined about 5,000 feet below sea level, okay? So the purity is about the most pure you're going to get out of a salt source, okay? So the nice thing about Himalayan pink salt, it also has 84 trace minerals in it. Now, trace minerals are minerals our body doesn't manufacture. We must get them from foods. Trace minerals we need in minute amounts. So 84 trace minerals is pretty nice, right? So this is why it's my salt of choice. Now, I will talk to you a little bit about iodine in a minute. Just hold that thought because I want to add to that thing. We know that the kelp powder has a lot of iodine in it. However, we don't want everything we eat to taste like fish, right? So, well, I'll tell you how I get some extra iodine here. All right, so the next kind of salts that I think are the second best, there are two kinds of sea salts. Did you know that? There's two kinds. There are mined sea salts, like Celtic salt. Have you ever seen Celtic sea salt? It's like a gray color. Or real salt is actually from mined in Utah, okay, by Salt Lake. Can I tell you a story? I know you'll let me. Okay, I'll tell you. Really quick. Ron and I were on our way to New Mexico, and we were taking the long route. And we were going through Utah. And it was during COVID, like at the tail end of COVID, probably the tail end of 2021, okay? And so I said, oh, Ron, we're going through Salt Lake. I always wanted to see the Mormon Tabernacle. All right, because I like the Mormon Tabernacle choir. They have beautiful music. He's like, you know, Carin, instead of that, don't they mine real salts in Utah? I go, yeah. He goes, we should go to the real salt mine and get a tour. Now here we go. If you know me, this is what happens. Ron, what do you think? During COVID, they're going to give us a tour of the mine? Besides, isn't it dangerous? How are we going to get in a mine? They're not going to let us in a mine. He's like, well, we should ask. I'm like, whatever. I had to go to Walmart, so he's in the car, because if you guys notice, that is my free time, is going into Walmart while Ron is in the car, right? And that's his free time. See, we get to, because we eat together, sleep together, play together, work together. That's our free time. So he's in the car, I go into Walmart. I come out, and he goes, guess what? I go, what? He goes, I called the real salt mine. I'm like, yeah? I go, well, what did they say? He goes, so I called and I said, hi, my name is Ron Linch. I'd like to know, do you do tours of the mine? And they said, no, I'm sorry, we don't. And he goes, oh, it's too bad. My wife is a chef educator, and she talks about real salt. And we were just wondering. She goes, hold on one second. And he goes, the owner wants to talk to you. So puts Ron to the owner, and they have a conversation. And he goes, come down, I'll give you a private tour. Ta-da! Thank you, Ron. because it was fun. We were in the mines. We had like the hard hats on. He's like, take as much salt as you want. Ron took a big chunk to make me like a salt lamp, you know.
Wow.
He was going to make me a salt lamp. I don't know if he's still going to make me a salt lamp, but we have the big chunk, okay? But anyway, actually I have a piece, I don't know where my bag is, but I have a show and tell piece of the salt. But anyway, so what happens? So we learned, do you want to hear something? First of all, mined sea salts like Himalayan salt and all those salts are excellent for the respiratory system. In fact, have you ever heard of the salt caves? Ron and I, because of my asthma, we were in Bering Springs, Michigan, and they have a salt cave there, which is really just a room that is layered with salt, the Himalayan pink salt. The floor is all ground salt, everything, the bench is made of salt. I mean, these big chunks of salt. Do you know people go in there with chronic bronchitis, COPD, asthma, things like that. Within 2 hours, their symptoms are gone, because it's an air purifier. It's amazing. Now, I don't know of any of down here. I've only seen them a few places, and when we see them, I'm like, can we go? And of course, it's kind of nice too, because they have like, you can put music on, you know, you can put any station on, the whatever, Pandora or whatever, and it was like relaxing and stuff. It was very neat. But anyway, I digress, but I'm back. All right, so we did, so real salt. So anyway, we got to a real education. Mined sea salts have 60 trace minerals in them. So if you're using those, that's not a bad source. I just think that the purity is not as, you know, and they're a little more expensive because they're in the United States, they're in Europe, you know, in the Himalayas, it's plentiful. All right, then there's regular sea salt. Do you remember like when sea salt became like the 20 years ago, it was like the best thing on the market, right? Well, every salt company like Morton, Diamond, jumped on the bandwagon and said, we're going to do sea salt, right? So that you can see that they have sea salts out there, right? The sea salt, now this is the problem. First thing, the first problem, which is a real problem, is ocean dumping. If somebody dumps something in Taiwan, it ends up in Hawaii. If somebody dumps something in Hawaii, it ends up in New Jersey. Why? Currents, you know, things go down. Things like plastic do not fully dissolve, right? So guess what happens? There's something called microplastics. Have you heard of microplastics? Microplastics are the plastics that you ingest through the air. You're breathing in plastic all the time. And when you're eating things, sea salt is full of microplastics. And so you're adding to your plastic consumption. You cannot digest plastic. It's toxic to the body. Guess what? Do you know that you, on the average person, eats approximately 1 credit card's worth of plastic a week? A week. You could just grind up your Visa card, throw it in the blender and eat it, and there you go, you're done. Okay? So, what? You could what?
You get an extra 18%.
All right, hold on, I'm checking my potatoes here, see how they're doing. Let me see, come on, I hope you're, they're getting there. Get back in there. All right, so, anyway, that should be done shortly. So anyway, so microplastics. So I kind of stay away from regular sea salt. I only buy the mined sea salts, and Himalayan is my, if you go to Costco, they have a big thing of Himalayan pink salt. So then the last salt that we have is table salt, right? How many trace minerals are in table salt? Robert's right, 0. 0. They strip everything out. Now, they want to make you feel good, so guess what they do? They throw iodine in there because iodine is such an important source for our body. But let me tell you something what they do to regular salt. This is why we live in New Jersey. Well, I don't live in New Jersey anymore. But when I lived in New Jersey, it ices up and you have to get scrape your front step. That's what you should use table salt for because there's no other use, in my opinion. So save your table salt for the winter that's coming up. Let me tell you what about the tables. First of all, salt is cheap. If you're going to cut corners somewhere, don't cut there. You're only saving pennies, right? So let me tell you about this. So first of all, the process of salt is as follows. First of all, they use aluminum derivatives in the processing. Who here likes Alzheimer's and dementia? Okay, because the aluminum goes to the brain. And people with Alzheimer's and dementia have had, the autopsies show high contents of aluminum. It's a heavy metal that does not get out of your system normally, okay? The second thing they use, okay, so if you like aluminum, good for you. Second thing, who likes bleach? because they use bleach in the processing.
Only in the bathroom.
Only in the bathroom. Cheryl doesn't mind bleach in the bathroom, but she doesn't want it in her food, does she? So there you go. So that's why you have white. Now let me ask you a question. Some of the old timers might understand this. Who here used to put salt in their salt shaker? Who used to put rice in their salt shaker?
Oh, yeah.
Do you still do it?
No.
Okay, good, because it was just a bad habit now. Because it used to help with the clumping, right? But now you notice salt freely pours. It doesn't clump. Why is that?
Did they coat it with something?
They use something called yellow prussiate of soda. Yellow prussiate of soda is an anti-clumping material that is a known carcinogen, cancer-causing agent. So, if you like Alzheimer's and dementia, you drink bleach, and you like cancer, those are the three things in salt. That's why I say it's only good for the step. Maybe if you had to scrub a pot and you need a little grit, maybe there, but rinse it off good. So anyway, now I'm going to go back to Himalayan pink. It does not have a significant source of iodine in it. So how do we get our iodine? You don't want everything to taste like kelp, right? What I do is I buy a good quality sea salt. Okay, I usually buy Hain, H-A-I-N. It's an iodized sea salt. What I do is I take a 1/4 cup of the Hain and I mix it with 3/4 of a cup of the Himalayan pink. I mix it together. I'm reducing the amount of sea salt I get, but I'm increasing the iodine I get in the thing. It's just something I do, but you just use what do what you like to do. If you can get another source of iodine, that's great. With that, and if you like kelp, enjoy. All right, you're going to like kelp in my tuna though. All right, I think I'm good with my potatoes. Let me see. Let me just get one out. They were just being stubborn. Oh, they're nice now. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my blender and I'm going to take a few cups, maybe 2 cups or so of my potatoes. If you get a little broth in there, that's fine. I'm using a slotted spoon, but I'm going to take about 2 cups of potatoes and onion, right? And I'm going to, goodbye little guy. Okay. Now, I want a little more for fun. And I'm going to add my coconut milk. This is going to now make a creamy, because the potato is going to be nice and creamy too. It's going to be our creamy thing, creamy base. So let's do our creamy here. And you don't need to blend it too much because soft potato is wee. All right, and that's it. We're going to throw this back into our broth and have a nice creamy broth. And now it's a corn chowder. Now a chowder always has potato in it. That's why we started with potato. And it's a corn chowder, so let's put some corn. I use frozen corn. You could use fresh corn, but you know what? Actually, I think the frozen corn gives it more flavor because we've used fresh corn before. If you have fresh corn, by all means, enjoy it and use it. But I find that the frozen corn works just as well. And the last thing, I'm using a little dill again because potatoes and dill go nice together. I forgot that I was doing a dill recipe over here, but we're getting more dill. All right. You're getting more because it tastes good. I'm going to tell you, it's good without it. It is excellent with it. So that is it. You're done. Soups are some of the easiest recipes. Does anybody have any questions or anything of things we talked about today?
I just want that.
Sure. Joanne, go ahead.
Chicken
Style seasoning?
style seasoning.
You can buy that. There's a brand that I use. It's called McKay's. That one is good. It's like the no MSG and vegan and all that. But if you go to the Toms River, is that health food store still there?
Yes.
You can just say, can I get a chicken style seasoning? They will have something there. Yeah, so you can try that, and then you don't have to use like anything with chicken fat or chicken broth. Folks, you have to understand, things like mad cow disease and the aviary flu and those things like that, they didn't go away. And so when we're eating these sources, we are risking disease, remember. So this is why going to a more whole food plant-based diet is going to be our healthiest option. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Well, if that's the case, if you give us 5 minutes, I'll bring some stuff back here. We'll get our plates together and we'll be ready to eat. How's that? What? I'm sorry? Okay. Why don't we have a word of prayer, ask the Lord to bless the food, and then I'll bring the soup back there, I'll bring this tuna back there, and we'll get everything ready. So let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you again, Lord, for our time together, and we ask you, Lord, now, as we're ready to partake of some food, we ask you, Lord, to bless it in a special way. Help it to nourish us, help it to strengthen us, And Lord, help us to always do your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, I'm bringing it back.